The Oklahoma Sooners are big winners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire at USA Today Sports. And on today's show, we're going to talk a recruiting prediction that Oklahoma received on Wednesday. We're also going to discuss some underappreciated Sooners from the 2024 season that are back for 2025. But let's start with this, Jay. ESPN's college football analysts ranked every Power 4 offseason. And the Oklahoma Sooners ranked pretty favorably among the SEC and overall, Jay.
Yeah, it appears that everyone is continuing the hype train for the Oklahoma Sooners here in the offseason. It's all we're getting is nothing but love. I don't like it. We've talked about this before, how I'm not very fond of everybody just fawning over us in the offseason. But at the same time, I do appreciate the fact that a lot of the experts are seeing that Oklahoma has made the moves that they need to do in order to be successful going forward. I mean, our biggest issue last year is that we made the mistake of going into the SEC very young on the offensive side of the ball, and it ended up being costly. The good thing is the defense was really, really good, and it seems to be mainly intact. Now, you do lose your big time, your big leader on defensive side of the ball with Danny Stutzman and then as well as Billy Bowman, but if the offense can, like I said, come out competent, we should be good. And I like that Bill Connelly, this article on ESPN, he's got a lot of good, favorable things to say about Oklahoma, especially where he decided to rank them.
Yeah, here's what Bill Connelly had to say about Oklahoma. He said, no one needed a good offseason more desperately than Venables, but he probably put together the best offseason in college football. We'll see if it translates to wins against another brutal schedule, but Arbuckle, Mateer, and company should produce a solid turnaround in the points department. Offseason national champions. Hang the banner. Let's go.
Boom, boom.
I mean, we dubbed Lane Kiffin Portal King. Did Brent Venables steal the crown? Should we crown him King of the Portal after the 2025 offseason?
I would say, well, based upon the way that we would give it to our guy Lane Kiffin, we didn't refresh our entire team again. Like that's what it feels like happens there at Ole Miss. They just get rid of every single player and start from scratch. It feels like every single year, but no, we should hang the banner or at least be excited about it and be hopeful going forward because, yeah, we brought in some key components that should help Oklahoma move forward into what we want to do. I know that Brent Venables' whole goal is to make sure that we have a stout defense and then have complementary ball on the offensive side, and we appear to be going that direction. And so the key departures, of course, they point out with Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, and then, of course, wide receiver Nick Anderson, who, when healthy, could be one of the top wide receivers in the country. Keyword, healthy. But we also brought in some really good components on the recruiting trail. And this is the one thing I kind of would like Sooner fans to understand. And we're going to have to break this down probably at the end of our end of season position pieces. That top incoming recruits with Michael Fasusi is what they have listed. They have CJ Nixon, a defensive end.
Okay.
A lot of people have forgotten that CJ Nixon will be here now this summer because basketball season, he's graduating high school, basketball season's over, as well as Elijah Thomas, in which ESPN had them both ranked really high in comparison to the other recruiting sites. So Oklahoma adding some key components like that. And then, of course, the haul out of the transfer portal in John Mateer, Jade, Knott, and then Kendall Daniels. And ESPN also had another article out, and we had to dig into that with some of the other SEC schools, but they talked about the top 100 transfers, the final rankings, the finals of the finals. Oklahoma had 3 top 100 players transferring into Norman. So if all else fails, the offseason, we did everything that we needed to do. And I know that fans and opponents like to call us broke and say that we don't spend money, but you don't haul in players like that if you ain't got money that you're spending.
Right. And listen, I jest about hang the banner. At the same time, you got to make moves to put yourself in a position to hang a banner.
Yeah.
And they did that. You bring in John Mateer. We've talked ad nauseum about him this offseason. We'll continue to give John Mateer the glow up all offseason until we can see him actually play some games. But the Jade Knott piece, it can't go under the radar. That was a huge pickup as well. That's a dude that ran for 1,300 yards 2 seasons ago. Banged up last year, played through it. You talk about the frustration that Oklahoma fans had with the wide receiver room last year because we couldn't get him on the field at all. And then here's a dude, Jade Knott, playing for a Cal team that was going nowhere and ended up playing the entire season, except for maybe a game or two. Like, that's a dude you want to have as your bell cow running back. Whether he's banged up or not, he's going to show up. He's going to try to play through things for his team. So that piece, the Derek Simmons piece, the Marvin Jones Jr. piece, they added Kendall Daniels. I mean, they added some really, really nice pieces this offseason to go with a really nice roster that they've recruited. And that's the key element here is Brent Venables, he's going to be active in the transfer portal. This is not one of those, Clemson, Dabo Sweeney things where it's like, no, we're just going to trust our guys and trust our development, and that's it. No, they're going to do both pieces where they're going to recruit really, really well, develop the guys that they've got, and then add some significant pieces in the portal. And they've done that. And I think they've had a great offseason. Will that amount to a college football playoff berth and a national championship? Only time will tell. But I think that will put them in contention for one. You got to go win the games. But they're in a spot with the roster that they've put together now where I feel a lot better about their chances of going to win 10 games this year than even I did last year. And listen, I was high on them last year. Fool's gold. Got me. I feel better about this team because it's got veteran leadership. You mentioned the inexperience and the youth on offense and how much that impacted them. Of course it did. It 100% did. I underestimated how much that was going to impact Oklahoma. They're a much more veteran team now. And you keep a key core of your defensive stars in town with R. Mason Thomas, Grayson Halton, Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams, Robert Spears Jennings, the Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, who's been in the program now for 4 years, 4 off seasons. Like, you have a really, really nice roster, man. And they've supplemented it well with some transfer portal stars. Now's the time to go win.
Yeah, the core is strong, and the additions do a really good job of complementing what you want to do. And that's also why you hire somebody like Jim Nagy. He recently did an interview with JD Piquel, and we got to talk about that very soon. But you bring him in because he's going to come in and give you a different set of eyes, and more so the eyeballs of someone who's been scouting for the NFL for years, and look for those particular traits. I'm going to preface this right now. I would like everyone to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. He will not bat 1,000. It is very hard to do that. It is virtually impossible. We've never seen that before, even at the NFL ranks. But he'll be able to give you something to compare and contrast. And that's what you're seeing right now when it comes to the recruiting side and the transfer portal side. You saw the focus on particular players. Snatching up a player like Jade Knott, literally out of nowhere, that should tell you everything you need to know about the way they were scouting. I mean, heck, we all knew that Nagy was all over him back when he was working the Senior Bowl, when he was looking at him for potentially this end of this season. He's like, yeah, that dude, it's going to be nasty. And he was looking at him as a sophomore. So you have to have that type of eyeball in order to prepare to build a program that could go for titles. And again, we know that Oklahoma is going to be able to build something toward that direction because they made the moves this offseason. We've made moves every offseason that would put us in better positions. The unfortunate thing is, like you said, some of us did underestimate heavily how rolling out our super young offense was going to affect us. I always played with the caution piece when I talked to everybody about this and said, the hope is that the wide receiver room and the veteran running backs and the veteran wide receivers would help supplement some things for our young quarterback and younger offensive line. Well, when you don't have the veterans to help you, it kind of throws that out the window.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes, like, you've got to have that experienced quarterback too. And
yeah,
I think that all came together at the wrong time for Oklahoma. Inexperienced quarterback, inexperienced offensive line, banged up wide receiver room. and banged up running back room. I mean, Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes battled injuries a lot of last offseason as well, which hindered their start to the season. So it just nothing went right. But this offseason, so much has gone right for Oklahoma, including the retention piece of the offseason. Let's talk about some underappreciated Sooners returning for 2025 coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
The days are getting longer and weather's warming up. And people are spending more time outside. I know I was the other day, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make you feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they got it all, and at a price that fits your budget. Me personally, I've got my backyard set up with some nice chairs around a little fireplace because even though it's warming up during the day, the evenings are still cool. Wayfair's got some great items and essentials to add to that to give you that nice ambiance as you enjoy going into the summer weather. So make sure you check them out. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Thank you again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube, and hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, let's talk about some key underappreciated Oklahoma Sooners. These are the guys that, okay, they had good seasons in 2024, but are kind of flying under the radar a little bit as we go into 2025. Who's somebody that you're thinking of that meets that criteria?
Look, I'm going to be honest. One person that we need to be talking a heck of a lot more, one player that we need to gas up constantly, one player that I feel like we need to always be talking about, Robert Spears-Jennings. I really don't get why we're not seeing his name fly up on more boards, especially like for safety draft and best safeties in the country, etc. That dude is all over the place. Not only is he an elite blitzing machine, I mean, we watched him go in there and he strip sacks, he gets good sacks, he takes the quarterback down at key components of the game. It's like you can tell that Brent Venables has an appreciation for Robert Spears-Jennings because in key components of the game, he always sends him head first. I love that. And that's something that I'm not going to lie, we need to be praising way more. And I'm surprised that we're not hearing his name more often around draft boards and stuff because he's got all the tools you need. He's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the capabilities. We've seen him in coverage. All he's got to do is refine his coverage skills. But John, I don't understand why we're not talking about Robert Spears-Jennings more.
I think by the end of this season, people will be talking about him a whole lot more. You know, he was getting a lot of buzz in the first half of last year and played great. I mean, he was a turnover forcing machine, whether it was interceptions, forced fumbles. He was wreaking havoc in that first half of the season. He was playing great ball. And I think, you know, it's his first full year as a starter. And anytime that happens, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some good games, some games that you'd like to improve upon. But this year, it's going to all come together. Like, this is one of the more intriguing players on Oklahoma's defense because of everything that he can do that you mentioned. He's great off the edge on the blitz. He's really good in run support. He's a great box safety. He can play well in coverage. He's got a good eye for the ball, good nose for the football, and just has a good feel for how to rip it out, knock it out. I mean, how many forced fumbles did he have in the first half of the season? It was crazy. Right. And then he had an interception as well. I mean, the dude was just creating so many splash plays, tackles for loss, sacks. So I think by the end of the season, I think he will be mentioned among those, you know, top 100 safeties that often get drafted because he's got all the tools and he's got all the measurables, he's got the size, and I think he'll test well, you know, when it comes to NFL pre-draft stuff. But right now, it's still a little bit of an unknown because, again, so much of the focus on last year's defense was on Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman. But Robert Spears-Jennings, RSJ, he's going to be getting a lot more buzz and a lot more eyeballs on him this year because he's going to be a key leader on this defense. He's one of those guys that has been a part of every single Brent Venables season. He came in that 2022 recruiting class and has been here. He's took his time. He's been patient. He's waited his turn. Now it's his time. And now it's his time to lead from the front, and similar to a guy like Grayson Halton. Ethan Downs was kind of the leader along the defensive line. Now you have a guy like Grayson Halton that's stepping up and stepping into a more significant role. And for me, that's my underappreciated guy on the defense. So much of the focus and the talk ends up with R. Mason Thomas, my dude, Jaden Jackson, my other guy, Jaden Jackson, or Dominic Williams, the addition of Marvin Jones Jr., that we forget that Grayson Halton was second on the team in sacks last year. He was second on the team in total pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. And the guy just stepped his game up in such a big way. Coming out of his first 2 seasons, the talk was consistency. He just wasn't consistent enough. Both of those off seasons. I remember asking Ted Roof about it after one of the spring games where Grayson Halton had 2 sacks in the spring game. And he's like, yeah, great game. Just need him to be more consistent. Well, That 2023 season, we started to see a little bit more from him, but it was last year where he really broke out. And I expect that he's going to be another significant contributor to this team this year, even though he's still being, I think, underappreciated. He's not being considered, a starter necessarily. People talk about David Stone all the time, or Jaden Jackson, or Dominic Williams. Grayson Halton has the ability, I think, to be one of the best defensive tackles in the SEC. And I think he's going to create a lot of buzz for himself this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, because he just goes out there and works hard. And we had high expectations of him over time. And all he's starting to do is really live up to him. Him, Robert Spears-Jennings, as well as Grayson Halton, have done a great job of just continuously moving forward and showing that development that can be done at Oklahoma. We always ask the question, give me some examples of development. What does development look like for your team? And keeping it a buck, that's your 2 right there. 2 perfect examples on the defensive line as well as in the secondary of players being developed by the coaches and showing up and showing out. They both have the tools. All they need to do was be more consistent. And we saw a lot of that last season. And I think Grayson Halton's going to be able to do that this year as well. That defensive line room is a little full, but we talked about this numerous times, John. The most important thing for a Brent Venables defense is having enough defensive linemen to rotate. You don't want these dudes playing 700 snaps. You want them about 300 to 400 snaps. That way their bodies are still fresh. If you plan on pushing for a national championship, you got to go 3 deep, especially because you'll be playing like 16 games, which of course is still obscene at the collegiate level, but at the same time, unfortunately, that's the game today. The game's the game. So you want to make sure that you have bodies that can handle the rigorousness of the SEC and the playoffs and be able to rotate in and out on a consistent basis. Maybe give a dude a rest a game because, he got banged up the game before. You don't want to have a massive drop-off. And I think Grayson Halton provides you with that, to where if he's starting or if he's not starting, you're not going to see a drop-off either direction. And that's a big plus for a defense that the goal is to be one of the best in the country. Brent Venables might be building that for everybody today. And then him and Jim Nagy finding even more diamonds in the rough that you can throw out there. Sooners have a very, very positive future in front of them.
What about on the offensive side of the ball? Who's somebody that we're not really appreciating or is going underappreciated right now as we are, at 3.5 months from the regular season?
I know it's funny because I think when you look at that, it's typically low-hanging fruit here is going to be offensive line, John. You probably want to talk about somebody that Bill Beatonbow has been working with, trying to build up and grow. I'm going to go a little bit on the opposite direction. I'm not going to hit the low-hanging fruit because we're going to talk about these players even more in depth in time, but I think, honestly, Xavier Robinson is one that's really being underappreciated right now. That Alabama game was legendary. It was one of those games where you're like, where the heck did you come from? This is one of those games where, this was your breakout moment. This was your moment of showing everybody that you, for real, is the truth. And there's a reason why Oklahoma wanted you, and we were able to get you over Iowa State, because Iowa State was pushing hard. And he goes to Iowa State, I'm going to be honest, he probably starts game 1, and he's still running wild for them, over 1,000 yards. And so Oklahoma was able to lock that down and get him in, and he showed us that, he was ready against, Alabama. Unfortunately, he got dinged up and it wasn't as effective against LSU, and that happens. But yeah, you got to appreciate the fact that he came in as a true freshman and was like, nah, I'm ready to do it. Just go ahead. Whenever you're ready for me, I'll be able to, I'll take the reins. And he did at the end of the season when we needed him the most. So I think he's going to be truly unappreciated. You bring in Jade, he's super dynamic and he's put up massive numbers. And so now, as long as in this time, his ankle should be a heck of a lot better. It's been some months. You're going to get some dynamic running back play. And I think that Xavier Robinson needs a little bit more love and be talked about a little bit more going into next season.
Yeah, that Alabama game had everybody, even the head coach, questioning DeMarco Murray's running back rotations for the season. Like, where's that been? But no, he's a dude, man. He's just a dude, and he's a guy that you can lean on in the run game. You mentioned offensive line. I think Heath Ozida is the name that comes to my mind because you were struggling to find youth along the offensive line that you could hang your hat on for the future. Well, Heath Ozida kind of became that guy last offseason. Now everybody's trying to replace him with Eddie Pierre-Louis. We'll see. Aside from Colton Sully of the Oklahoman, who had Ozida still as his starting left guard, we'll see what transpires in fall camp and who ends up winning that job. But yeah, that's a guy that just continually just gets better and better and better. He's didn't really play a whole lot as a true freshman, played a lot last year, had some ups, had some downs, but showed that he's got something that you can continue to build upon. We're going to talk about a player that's really flying under the radar in the recruiting rankings, but not with Oklahoma. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to have great content for you all summer long, including Jay and I will both be at SEC Media Days in July. So there will be a lot of fun content coming from that here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed to the show again, wherever you get your podcasts, but also over on YouTube. The Oklahoma Sooners have been really creating a lot of buzz on the recruiting trail over the last few days. They got their first defensive commitment in Nico Jandrow, got a recruiting prediction for his brother, linebacker Bo Jandrow, both out of Arizona. But also on Wednesday, they picked up a trio of recruiting predictions from rivals Parker Thune, Brandon Drum, and Greg Harris, their national recruiting director over at Rivals, for Ben Wenzel, a linebacker prospect out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was very interesting when I saw this. I saw that he did a visit, and when I saw the predictions come down the line, I'm like, oh, so Oklahoma's serious about landing themselves a linebacker from up there in the north. Now, this is one of those, size-wise, he's pretty impressive, 6'3", 218 as a junior, and so you can expect him to continue to fill up. And he's one of those players that looks like he'll probably grow very well into his body. So you could probably get him to 6'3", 240, almost 250, and he'll be really, really good. But as you mentioned, he's very much underrated. He's not someone that's like highly rated right now. The recruiting isn't the highest yet. So his actual list of schools aren't the biggest. It's Oklahoma, really Kansas, San Diego State, Wisconsin, Wyoming. So, but North Dakota State is after him, and that kind of tells you something. They're a multiple national championship team, and they usually get some pretty good players that end up going pro. But this is one of the Nate Drilling specials. It's one of those players that looks like he fits the type that they're looking for, and I think he'll be a really good under-the-radar pickup. You got to remember, you're not going to be able to land 100% 5 stars. You got to find some good diamonds in the rough out there, and I think Ben can be one of those.
Yeah, he is one of those guys that's really intriguing. So I think his recruiting is starting to pick up more significantly over the last little bit. He had an official visit with Kansas back in April. And since then, you've seen other teams kind of get on his radar, or at least he's gotten on some other teams' radar. Oklahoma just offered him back on April 29. He's going to have his official visit with the Sooners for Champ U Barbecue. He's having an official visit with Wisconsin here at the end of May. It wouldn't surprise me to see a few more teams start to reach out and start to pursue him a little bit more. Wisconsin is not a big hotbed for recruiting. Unfortunately, they only have so many guys that can go so many places and rate players. What's intriguing about him is the size. The length is really nice. Like he's got good long arms. He knows how to use them. And when you watch him play, he's very good at sifting through the trash, sifting through the junk up in front of him to find the ball carrier. Like he just has this innate ability to, it's easy to go win in the open field and go make a tackle in the open field. Can you get through guards and centers and offensive tackles and fullbacks and wide receivers and tight ends and go find the ball carrier? And he does a great job at that. And when he wraps up, he doesn't let go. He just envelops them like an anaconda. Like he just has that length to him. And so I think this is intriguing. And again, it's looking for traits. He's a physical player. He doesn't appear to be the most athletic, but I think it's some of it is because of his length. You know, he's got to still work on how to use his length and figure out how to use his body a little bit better. And that will happen at the collegiate level. You know, he'll continue to get better athletically. He'll continue to get stronger, but he's got a nice frame to him. And again, you talked about Nate Dreiling. What about Jim Nagy? Like Jim Nagy's going to see these kids and be like, yeah, that guy can play. Like, he's a good ball player. We'll get him in our program. We'll continue to fill him out. We'll get him better strength and conditioning wise, and we'll make something of that kid. So it's fascinating to see. And I think this is not where Oklahoma is going to end at linebacker with Bo Jandro. If they end up getting a commitment from him and with Ben Wenzel, I think they're going to have a deep linebacker class this year because they're going to need to restock and reload at the position. But I really like what Ben Wenzel has on film. Again, not the most highly recruited guy, not the most highest rated guy, but he's got some really intriguing traits that can do something for you.
Yeah, especially at his size. Like I said, 6'3", you know, roughly 217, 15 pounds or whatnot. He has on here, he runs a 4.78 40. And so if he gets that up, could be special. I mean, somebody else that was in that 6'3" range, similar 40 range, was your guy Danny Stutzman. Not saying he's going to be Danny, but at the same time,
man, he looks a lot like Danny. Like the way that he moves is similar. Again, just kind of moves in a similar way to Danny.
Yeah, he is good. He has very good lateral movement, and that's the thing that reminds me of, you know, Danny Stutzman. And like I said, I'm not saying that he's going to be him, but if you want a good comparison as far as body size and shape, he looks similar to what Danny did coming out of high school. And so if he puts in the necessary work and makes sure his footwork is strong, continuously be strong, his ability to shuffle, like I said, siphon through the trash and making his way past the linemen and the defensive linemen and getting into the backfield and getting to the running back, he can do something. So we'll have to see what that turns into. But now he's got the body for it. It's just now it's all about the execution side. And so, you know, it'll be okay. I think that Oklahoma has a good idea of what they're looking for. They're looking for particular types and specific body styles. I think he lines up exactly what they're looking for.
Well, and if there's a guy that I trust to recruit linebackers, it's Brent Venables.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Me
and
too.
Wes Goodwin.
Yeah.
And Nate
Yeah,
Dreiling.
they've done a pretty good job at that.
I think they're going to be pretty okay. If they see something and they can evaluate it and
decent.
Yeah, it's all right. But they also understand, like, okay, it doesn't matter how good of a linebacker you are. If we don't got the dudes in front of you along the defensive line, you're going to have a really, really hard time. So they do a great job at evaluating linebacker talent, but they also do a great job at helping their linebackers with good defensive line play as well. So we'll continue to monitor Ben Wenzel's recruitment as well as some of these others. Brian Harris, the defensive lineman that Oklahoma was projected to land out of Jacksonville, Florida. Bo Jandro, the linebacker that Oklahoma has been projected to land out of Arizona. We'll continue to follow that and much more on the recruiting trail as recruiting picks up for the Sooners as the summer months come to fruition. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. He does kind of remind me of Danny, though. No, I'm being for real.
He just moves like Danny.
Moves like Danny.